Hello, everyone. This is Raise Your Voice as part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Brett Rutherford, joined as always by my co-host, Darby Robinson. We are live on X on the D-Rays Bay account at D-Rays Bay, and we are live on YouTube, youtube.com/@raiseyourvoice. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, drop a like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know exactly when it is we're going live. And we've got a lot of news to talk about and some more rumors to talk about. But first off, just want to say, if you love what we do on Raise Your Voice and you want to support us, patreon.com. And there's different subscription options. Again, none of it is nothing is going behind a paywall. This is just an opportunity to say thank you if you so choose. But Darby, first off, got to talk about the biggest news of the weekend. Some more news today. Shohei Ohtani is an LA Dodger, signed a 10-year, $700 million contract. We're going to that we learned about today. But first off, what was your reaction to the news that Ohtani was staying in LA but was going to be wearing Dodger blue?
Yeah, just moving up the road about 35 minutes or an hour, but hour and a half with traffic. I think it makes so much sense. It makes a ton of sense to go to LA. All the stuff's there. You don't need to move anybody. You don't need to move all of the Japanese media that's been following them either. They don't have to leave their families and go further into Canada. I think I think it's the most exciting move from a fan of Ohtani whose team had no chance of signing him. I think everybody who was in, and that's most teams, were in we're not going to sign this guy. So where can he go and it not be devastating and awful? And so I think this is kind of the best scenario. And for fans, you've got a National League team. Great. You have LA, which has Brandon Gomes as their GM and Andrew Friedman as their executive, and a very Rays West Coast rich elite. This is what the Rays would look like if they had infinite levels of money and infinite levels of popularity and stardom. So a lot of I think connections there in terms of as a Rays fan, not a bad West Coast National League, late night after the Rays win, flip on over to a Dodgers game. Great broadcast crew with Joe Davis and Oral Hershiser. So that's, I think, going to be a very fun broadcast to tune into on your MLB TV late night after your East Coast games have finished. Time to turn on over and check out Shohei and Mookie and Freeman and the rest of the Dodgers. It's a huge move in terms of personality and impact. Shohei is an incredible player. For next year, it is one of those interesting moves where it doesn't move the needle that much for the Dodgers. It gives you obviously three unbelievable, three of the top 10 players in baseball are on this team, but Shohei's not pitching next year. So that's a limiting factor of his greatness. And the Dodgers they weren't exactly a bad team last year. They also weren't exactly a team that struggled to score runs. So Ohtani makes them better. Obviously, he makes everybody better, but it isn't that Ohtani leaving the Angels devastates the Angels' chances in just innumerable ways, but it doesn't necessarily boost the Dodgers were already going to be 1A or 1B with the Braves in the National League. So I think they still remain that way. And for everybody else that's not in the National League, it's fun to see an arms race with those two teams and then have them lose to an 86-win Arizona Diamondbacks team again or something like that.
With the Dodgers, what's the closest we've gotten? I think there are a couple examples, let's say in the since the turn of the century or the turn of the millennium, where you've got these three superstars, none of which are homegrown, like mega superstars,
Mhm.
like all guys you would predict are going to be in Cooperstown one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of them were acquired like in quick succession by the Dodgers. Over when was Mookie traded? 2019, 2020? It was before the
Yeah.
pandemic, I think. And
Was
then
it
they
before
get
the
Freddie
pandemic?
Freeman. I think it was the season going into, maybe not. I could, yeah, because he was on the Dodgers in 2020 and won the World
Yeah.
Series.
Oh yeah. No, I remember. I guess I thought it was that year. I thought it was the pandemic year, but yeah. No, it probably was. Um,
um, but
but
yeah,
yeah,
like,
that's an
is
interesting.
there an example of a team that has acquired their super team like this? I mean, the Yankees getting A-Rod, but like they already had Jeter.
Maybe the 90s Yankees. I mean,
Yeah.
Jeter was still a big part of that, who was homegrown, but you added
Mhm.
like, early on Cecil Fielder and David Justice and Gary Sheffield and Roger Clemens. Yeah, actually, maybe the Yankees in the Steinbrenner era, especially in the like dynasty 90s dynasty, had a lot of like big stars that they acquired in, but they still had that is true though. They still had like Jorge Posada and Bernie Williams and Derek Jeter as like their mainstays that were like the homegrown talent to go along with your kind of bigger free agents and trades. Gosh, yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, maybe not quick succession though, but like the Red Sox main core was
Yeah.
filled with, like Kurt Schilling, Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz,
I
Johnny
mean,
Damon. Those are all like people that were from other places, but they all sort of became, I mean, not Manny Ramirez, but I would say like the star power.
yeah. There's an argument though that these are like the three.
Diamondbacks,
Uh,
Randy
yeah,
Johnson, Kurt
yeah.
Schilling, kind of being brought in.
That would be another
Matt
close one.
Williams. Uh, who else was in that team? Like Luis Gonzalez was like kind of the Gonzalez and Tony Womack were like the homegrown. But
Yeah,
then you had Craig Counsell, who was a World Series hero for the Marlins, brought in. You have Matt Williams. You have people like kind of on the back end of their careers, kind of the vet sort of super team. Prime stars being assembled like this, I cannot think of exactly an analog, just because that's a very, I don't know how many teams in history have been able to acquire 3 top 10 like players.
yeah. No, fair enough. With I think the Dodgers, like those three players, there's an argument out there for those to be the three best players in baseball. I mean, Ronald Acuna probably has to be in that top three somewhere. Would probably
I don't
bump
want Braves
Freeman
fans
out.
angry at us, so we'll put Acuna in there just to keep the ire of Braves fans
I
away
mean,
from us.
you might argue it's Ohtani then Acuna then Betts, or I mean, I don't know. Freeman could be up like ahead of Betts. And Betts is like
it's
his
it's
career
it's
is going
really
to be
kind of
different
in
now.
terms of like WAR. If you want to go by like stuff like that, I mean, I think there's a pretty, they have ranked top 5,
Yeah.
and they all have like 8-win ceilings, like 8 to 10
Well,
win potential.
yeah. I don't think it's 8. I
And,
think it's definitely closer to 10. Like,
well, Otani especially. I mean, I think
yeah,
he has infinite potential with the pitching and hitting, but like we've seen Mookie and Freeman give you some like 7-8 win seasons, which are like crazy. And if throwing Otani in there, even as a hitter, I mean, just like focusing as a hitter alone, he is a tremendous talent. I do think it's gonna be, it's a very exciting, like I do think this is one of those moves where sure the Dodgers get more, the rich get richer, but like it is sort of like the move that almost keeps the status quo in check. And I know there's been a lot of talk today with the structure of the deal came out some people like lost their minds about it with the deferrals and the exact structure of how it works. But like, again, you know, the Braves and the Dodgers were the two. They have like the best farm systems, the best present day. They all have like a lot of money. They all are like kind of right at the top. So I think it keeps the status quo of like who are the best teams. They're still these teams there. If Ohtani goes to the Cubs or the Blue Jays, I think that drastically changes the trajectory of that team. I think that like boosts that team beyond where I think people thought they would be right now. I think going to the Dodgers, I think that's like, you know, okay, they're going to win 108 games instead of 106 games. It's hard to boost a team even higher than where they already are when they're at such lofty levels.
Yeah. No,
not to say that's not a great deal for the Dodgers, obviously, but like it's an interesting deal from an outside fan perspective because it doesn't change. You know, the Dodgers are still the team to beat in the West. The Braves are still the team to beat in the East, and those are still two the teams that when it comes to a 5-game series, you just have to get lucky a couple of times.
We'll talk about again the structure of this deal in just a second, but I feel like with Ohtani, this is an eternal investment for the Los Angeles Dodgers, assuming that he plays several great seasons with the Dodgers. The arguably greatest ever player will be eternally linked to the Dodgers franchise. And think about and the Dodgers already have examples of like Jackie Robinson and others, and I think Clayton Kershaw and Sandy Koufax. I mean, arguably the two greatest starting pitchers of all time. And then you add in a Shohei Ohtani. Think about that's what makes the Yankees as valuable as they are as a franchise. Is the legends like Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle. Like those are baseball legends. And because of that, that's not the only reason, but the Yankees are one of the most valuable sporting franchises on the planet. And so $700 million, if we're talking about the next 100 years of building a baseball brand, that's nothing.
Well, you also, a West Coast team, which is the closest we have to Japan, where Shohei Ohtani is from, where he is even bigger of a star, and even bigger of a celebrity. The Dodgers just secured the fandom of every man, woman, and child in Japan, basically. Like every Dodgers game is going to be broadcast over there. Like every Dodgers game, this is, obviously they have an extremely popular, amazing baseball league of their own, but they follow their stars over here. They keep track, and you see the amazing presence that Ichiro had and the star power that he brought to the Seattle Mariners when he was out here, and the fandom and the huge amount of press. This was news every night when you saw Ichiro dominating, and we saw it with to lesser extents, but with Hideki Matsui and Tanaka, and even before that with numerous players. But Ohtani is he's one of the biggest stars in MLB. He's one of the biggest stars in the Nippon leagues when he was playing there. He is an absolutely legend. So you now are getting the broadcast rights basically to a country who is baseball obsessed. So if there's a new, if you are a young Japanese fan who is looking for maybe expanding your team, being well, I kind of want to check out an American team as well and follow that Shohei Ohtani Dodgers blue jersey is going to be pretty popular. That's incredible. And it's probably not going to stop with Ohtani. I mean, we have seen guys like Yamamoto say that they maybe want to go to a team that has a Japanese star on there. Dodgers need pitching too. Maybe that wins them Yamamoto. And we saw that with the Mariners, right? They brought in Kaz Sasaki. That helped Ichiro kind of choose them. And then that got them further like attention, and it raises, like you said, it raises the profile of the franchise when you now become an international brand. And not that the Dodgers weren't sort of an international brand in general, but they are now like locking that in. Like this $700 million is a wild deal, but like you said, I mean, this is an investment opportunity in a Hall of Famer who will go into Cooperstown with your hat, will be Dodgers legend Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah,
that's what they bought.
It's which is incredible to kind of think. What's even more incredible, and it feels illegal. It should be illegal, probably. is how they're paying him those $700 million, and typically
if the Rays did it, it would be until next year. They would slam that loophole shut so fast. We would have everybody on Twitter lamenting the cruel and evil business practices of the Rays. You would never see the end of the hot takes.
No, here's what would happen. Bob Nightingale would have tweeted, the Rays have agreed to terms with two-way superstar. The hashtag Rays have agreed to terms with two-way superstar Shohei Ohtani. And for Twitter would have been like going insane. Probably Heyman confirms the report. And then 20 minutes later, Jeff Passan tweets that the league has vetoed a Shohei Ohtani signing to the Tampa Bay Rays. But okay, so usually when we get into like deferrals and weird things with contracts, I get really confused really easily. And I am still confused about parts of this deal, but it is pretty straightforward how it is structured. So he signed for $700 million. $680 million are deferred. He will be paid out the other $20 million over the length of the 10-year contract at $2 million a year. Then for the next 10 years, he will be paid out on an annual basis. The $680 million deferred, where he will continue to make from the Los Angeles Dodgers $68 million a year. Up to his, I won't even say like age 48 season. It's not, I don't think he'll be playing. But through his
double dipping,
he's 48
he could take
old.
another deal, keep extending it.
Yeah. And it just sounds illegal. Probably should be illegal, but it's not. And fair play to both the Los Angeles Dodgers and to Shohei Ohtani for pulling off a contract like this.
It takes two to tango, right? That's the thing. Is you can say so. Deferred money is something that the Washington Nationals have done a lot of. They that was their kind of thing. Was like they'll be like, we'll give you what's you want, $500 million, excellent, 70-year deal. We'll just don't worry about it. We'll just we'll pay you.
You'll get it eventually.
Later. Yeah, you'll get it eventually. We're good for it. We're definitely not going to go bankrupt later on. We're definitely not going to sell the team to pay for the back end of this deal. So deferrals are oftentimes owner friendly, right? You are paying less now and you're paying the rest later. It allows you to spread things around. Oftentimes that is the case. But it's also on the players. They get to make this choice. And Ohtani clearly is a very, very wise, business savvy guy. Like we talked about it in the last show. He dominated the news cycle. He ruined legacy media, brought them to their knees, and bent them to his will. And then was the one to break that he was going to the Dodgers on his own Instagram. So that is like Ohtani clearly has a very good business mind on his shoulders. He also has a ton of endorsement deals, and he's going to get even more in LA. So his money, he's going to basically not even need the playing money, the Dodgers money. He's going to get so much more through endorsements that he's going to be fine. And by spreading this out, by doing this kind of savvy business move, not only is he securing all this money on the back end, but it is allowing him to go to a team that can now spend a little bit more in the present day to give him a better chance of winning.
Yeah.
it does seem like kind of manipulation of like the tax rules. It seems like it is trying to get away, and it's going to be interesting to see how this works. Jeff Passan did talk about how like there is nothing really in the players kind of agreement, the collective bargaining agreement, that sort of forbids this, and you can structure it however you want to structure it so long as you get paid every dime of this money. But it is a very interesting setup. Now, there was a report and rumor early on in like the process where Ohtani was also interested in like an ownership stake in the team that he eventually would choose, which you can't do. That is not legal. You cannot sell an ownership stake. You have to give actual real money. However, now that Ohtani has basically been granted for those 10-year period after his deal a huge chunk of debt that the franchise has taken on, maybe there's an agreement later on that debt gets paid out in a different form, in the form of shares of a team. Well, that's for us to discuss in like 10 years, in a decade.
Raise your voice.
Yeah, on Raise Your Voice 10th anniversary edition of this, we can talk about how Shohei Ohtani is now has double the shares that Magic Johnson has of the
the
Los
tweet
Angeles
would be hilarious for that.
Yeah, Magic he'd have a good tweet. He would have a good tweet, or whatever.
Our star pitcher just gained more equity in the Los Angeles Dodgers than me. This is terrible.
Now that's Showtime. Now that's what I call Showtime. I love his tweets. They're very direct, factual, and humorous. So yeah, it's a fascinating move. Shohei Ohtani is now still like he's the most interesting player in baseball, both as a player, but now with this whole structure, it's endlessly fascinating to see what he's doing. So the biggest domino has finally fallen. We have now reached the point in the offseason where everybody else, every other big move, it's now open season. So anybody that was waiting on Yamamoto and Snell or a trade for Tyler Glass, now on your marks, get set, and go.
Well, did you notice what I'm wearing tonight, Darby?
A Eric Neander special.
Yeah, I've got on the Eric Neander quarter zip because I wanted to feel like what he felt like after the Ohtani news, and now like he was like, all right, it is go time. And I put this on, and I immediately went to baseballtradevalues.com and started doing some transactions. And I want to talk about some potential trades that we might see maybe in the very near future. A lot of people in the know seem to be thinking that something's close to being done. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Mark Topkin in his Rays rumblings. Before we get to Tyler Glass now, let us talk about the newest addition to the Rays pitching staff. It is a minor league deal, but I think this player will be a major league player at some point this year. Edwin Acita signed. He has been a bit of a journeyman, bouncing. He's pitched in the big leagues for 3 separate teams, but only 40 career innings. The Rays have picked him up on a minor league deal, and I love this signing. Darby, tell us about Edwin Acita.
Yeah, I mean, so I think one of the things with him, he's a journeyman, but he's gone to some interesting clubs with some pretty cool pitching philosophies, and has bounced around a little bit. Fun Rays connection, he became available this past summer because he was opening spots for returning Evan Longoria to the Diamondbacks. So that's kind of fun. Now, Edwin Acita, if you watch any clips of him, And Cole at Raise Metrics has a little video, but there's a bunch of little clips going online. He's got a very cool arm slot, and once you see that arm slot, you kind of see like where the Rays might enjoy. It's about, I wouldn't say it's full sidearm, but like kind of like 3/4 angle. Kind of loves the high fastball, kind of lives up in the zone, which the Rays like to do. He has a lower arm slot, so that high fastball, low arm slot, totally, again, a Rays like catnip for them. And he has a really interesting changeup, which again, that's like 3 of the quadrants that the Rays just look for is, do you throw a change, lower arm slot, and live with a high fastball? That's exactly what they like in their relievers. Now, with Yoshida, I think he's been a guy that has flashed impressive stuff. He has been a little shaky with command. He's also had some injury issues. So his development, his kind of consistency has not quite been there. I'm extremely excited, though, with that kind of raw stuff, right? Solid fastball, really impressive changeup, arm slot, getting him to the Rays, getting him under Kyle Snyder, and getting him to that, I think, universal catching setup could be very helpful for him. That center catching setup, which the Rays are a team that loves to do. You don't move the glove around to where you want the pitch to throw. You just set up middle every single time, and the natural movement will take it away from the center of the plate. So it gives the pitcher less to think about, less to worry about, less to aim at, and just says, we want fastball. We want the fastball, throw it in the middle. It's going to rise a little bit. It's going to hit the top of the zone. We want that changeup middle. It's going to sink below the zone. That's all you need. A little less to work with, a little less to think about, more to focus on just executing those pitches and getting that good stuff. There is also a good chance that he just, this is the best he is a fringe major leaguer. But that's fine. This is a minor league deal. This is the type of deals you do because you bring these guys in, you give them a whole spring training to kind of work with the team. And we've seen this time and time again with the Rays, that you bring in some interesting arms, you let them all get a good shot and see who shakes out. I believe he still has an option remaining as well. So if he's a guy that doesn't have to break camp with the team, he could stay in Durham and be on that shuttle. And the Rays do love a shuttled reliever.
Yeah, they sure do.
So Brett, why do you like
pitch some big things? Well, first off, it's because I traded for him and he became my closer. But the real reason why, very similar to you, it's all in the arm angle, and it's all in the arm angle and what he can do with his fastball. And I'm just really excited. It's the guy that probably needs to throw more strikes, I think, and that will help his issues, as it does with a lot of pitchers. Throw more strikes, you'll get more outs. Do not walk batters. It's bad. And getting him working with Kyle Snyder is probably, I don't know, exactly what he needs. So I hope Snyder gives him a little extra time in spring training, because I imagine he will start the year in AAA. But when he's ready to get called up, he'll come in and perform. So I'm really excited for this signing, more so than I guess I typically would be for a minor league pitcher. Darby, we've talked about it all, and each episode we could talk about. Feels like we're getting close to a Glasnow trade. It feels like there's something on the horizon, and one of the biggest dominoes that needed to fall, Shohei Ohtani. And we thought for some other teams, maybe planning Ohtani would take them out of the Glasnow race, but some people no one's reporting on it yet, but there's just a lot of smoke surrounding Glasnow in the Los Angeles Dodgers. I, for a long time, felt like this was either this or the Cubs would be the best fit for a Glasnow trade in terms of what they have to offer. Guys that are close, already in the big leagues. if that is what the Rays desire, and I think it is. I was hoping maybe with some of the rumors we started to hear in Topkins Rays rumblings that we'd have a trade by the time we're live tonight. As of now, has not happened.
It's also just wishful thinking to be like maybe just before we can get live reactions, but what can you do?
Where are you at in terms of the Glasnow trade, other than just waiting to see what the return will be and where he's going?
That's where I'm at. Honestly, it's a fait accompli. He's being traded. I'm now under like no uncertain circumstances that he is being traded. I still stand by my statement that he doesn't need to be traded, but I also think, like we've talked about a lot, that there's a lot of interesting options trading him kind of offers in that last year of that deal. So I still see this as I'm expecting an interesting return. It's probably going to not feel like as big as people want it to be. However, I also don't think it's going to be given away for nothing. And the Rays are not really trading for like 18-year-olds only. Like I think there's going to be a piece here that is going to be helping in the near term, whether that's this very year or by like mid-season. So Dodgers and Cubs both had a lot of that similar. That's, I think, why those two teams really stood out. Plus, they wear blue. We already know Glasnow looks good in blue, so that would just be, very polite to like not send him, somewhere that he's going to have to, not be able to be a fashion icon. So I like I've always liked the Dodgers a little bit more than the Cubs for this trade. I know the Cubs and the Rays have been talking about Glasnow for feels like forever, like at least like 3 years it seems. But still, I've always gravitated toward. There's some great prospects on the Cubs that I think we've talked about, I believe, on the show, at least in the Slack a lot, about how those teams line up and how there could be some really good, trade matchups there. I think the Dodgers, there's just so many options there that I would be really excited. There's the kind of bigger names that we've maybe even seen a little flash of, like your Ryan Pepio or Emmett Sheehan, who both pitched in the majors last year. Gavin Stone as well, who's pitched in the majors last year. Those would probably be Sheehan and Pepio are probably like a 1-for-1, or maybe even the Rays take a little bit extra. And there might be like a lower minor league prospect to like clear out from the Dodgers side. You also then have interesting options like a 1-for-1 of like Diego Cartaya, who is a very interesting catching prospect. Struggled a little bit in Double-A, but the power was still like legit. 19 home runs last year in Double-A. And again, like Brandon Gomes was talking, there's a quote from Gomes about his like development and how he, the bat like maybe took a little step back a little bit this past year, but like the catching side, the defense side, the receiving, the game planning, all of that stuff took a big leap forward. And when it comes to catchers, it's such a difficult development process. Prospects as catchers are just, it's tricky. It's such a difficult journey. I think that would be a really cool pickup. I think there's some really fun names that may not be as familiar to Rays fans that are a little bit lower on the list, but you could get maybe a little grab bag piece that could do some really cool stuff. There's a lot to like in the Dodgers system. I think there's a lot to like in the Cubs, but there's so many avenues with the Dodgers that I think are exciting that I just think that could kind of line up. They're also a team that I could see maybe even wanting to add like a Manuel Margot in that trade, because they are kind of a little thin in the outfield, and maybe a Margot and Glasnow move to the Dodgers could actually be an opportunity here. I
don't know. I think to get the prospects you want, and if you want to turn this into a bigger trade, and I think the Rays have showed they're willing to do this. They did it with Yandy Diaz, right? Where they will pay money now or send money in a deal or eat Glasnow's contract to invest in some of these younger players that have multiple years or several years of team control. And so I think they'd be willing to eat maybe up to half of Glasnow's contract and pay $12 million this year. But if you can get Diego Cartaya and an interesting arm that you like, I don't know, maybe Manuel Margot is involved in some way, but I feel like that kind of just convolutes things a little more. I'm starting to think they're stuck with Manuel Margot, but maybe the Mets come through or something. I don't know. But I do think that the Rays would be willing to eat some of that Glasnow contract to bring in guys that they really believe in. Maybe Cartaya is not that guy, but I feel like there's got to be other prospects on their list or pitchers like a Ryan Pepio. I don't know, but it does feel like if they're just trying to get rid of the contract and save as many dollars as they can, I feel like the return might be slightly underwhelming for Rays fans.
I still think it's going to be a move that I think the move is there's enough teams out there that are looking at Tyler Glasnow and saying 1 year of Glasnow, much similar to Soto, 1 year of Glasnow helps our team quite a bit next year.
Yeah.
And like Andrew Friedman said after signing Ohtani, if you're rational about every move, you end up second and third a lot. So there is this point where the Cubs, the Reds, there's a lot of teams that I think would take him off the Rays' hands. I think there's still enough. That gives you that boost of the offer is going to be something that does help this team. Now, it might be seemingly underwhelming. It may not be like, Miguel Vargas is coming back in the trade, but I still think this is a trade that I think could actually bring back something that we look back on and say that impacted the Rays in the present quite a bit. And it may not be the most household name. A lot of these guys maybe really aren't. I know we're talking about like Ryan Pepio, like that, like everybody knows who Ryan Pepio is. Like that. I think that's something that sometimes when you get really deep into like prospect watching, you can be like, gosh, I'll never part with this guy. And the internal evaluations on him are terrible, and the other teams don't even want that person. So, that's the other thing, right? Like you never know what the internal. It might be a lopsided trade on baseball trade reference or trade values, but the internal evaluations and the internal like buzz that could be totally external evaluations might appear.
Yeah, definitely agreed. We talked about this quite a bit, but I would love to see the Rays make the big league acquisitions, and I'm sure they're on the way. But it is December 11th, and we've really only talked about outgoing. Sure, there could be someone that is ready to that could be involved in this trade. But let's assume by the next time we record, Tyler Glasnow will not be on the Rays. Where do they look to next? What are the holes on the roster? What are their goals this offseason to go into 2024 as better off or as good off as they can going into the season?
What's funny is like there really hasn't been much exiting either. There's been a lot of speculation it's been a lot of speculation, but there's been stasis, right? And we sort of talked about a couple episodes back. It's hard to say like when it's like, oh, if you had to replace Paredes and Randy and Glasnow and Margot, but like if those guys get traded, they are bringing back replacements with them basically. So right now there's really not a lot of room to make a move. Like say Glasnow gets traded and it's not for a major leaguer right away. It's a guy that maybe comes up later this season, or it's a guy that you put into Durham and he's in the shuffle of people that could get called up with like your Curtis Meads and your Junior Camaneros. I think you could see the Rays be potentially involved in that kind of, again, a fringier starting pitcher type, not like fringier as in will they be a starting pitcher, though the Rays are pretty good at that. More in the like back end of the rotation, 3-4 kind of range. Iwamura has been mentioned as like potentially a guy that the Rays have looked at. I don't know how much smoke is actually there, or how much of that is just price enforcing. Again, right. They're not going to be in on Yamamoto. Certainly not. There's guys like Seth Lugo who are out there that I think would be really cool to add, who I think are right there on the Aaron Savali line, but I think could be something that's maybe a bit more of a worrying arm for a lot of bigger teams and clubs. And so if the Rays can secure that, I think that could be something neat for like a short-term deal. But I think that's the biggest thing is right now, in terms of offense, I don't know if there is like anything to upgrade. You have shortstop, which is the biggest question mark. And the Rays currently, by projections, have the best shortstop WAR of any team in baseball, with a big glaring asterisk of whether that shortstop will be allowed to play or is in a Dominican prison. So that's a really good question. So that's a big question mark, is how do you kind of handle shortstop in the near term, in the long term, potentially, all that. Other than that, though, unless you make some trades, you have no kind of way to upgrade what's there.
Yeah.
Like if you don't trade Paredes, that's your starting third baseman. If you don't trade Brandon Lau, that's your starting second baseman. If you don't trade Yandy Diaz, that's your starting first baseman. Catcher is another question mark. What happens there? Mitch Garver is still on the market. Max Stassi was available. Braves traded for him for basically nothing, and then traded him to the White Sox for basically nothing. That's a guy that I think could work very well on the Rays with Rene Pinto. How do the Rays address catcher? We'll see. But the outfield's also looking like you're starting. If you don't trade Randy Rosarena, that's your starting left fielder. Jose Siri's your starting center fielder. Josh Lowe is your starting right fielder. DH is still Harold Ramirez and Luke Raley platoon. Like the roster is pretty full, and this is a roster that scored a lot of runs. So
yeah, record-breaking
no
numbers
easy way.
at times.
There is no way to upgrade this easily without potentially a trade. So right now, it seems like until the Rays, I think, move their first chess piece, this feels like the team. But then once that first move happens, I think then you might start to see several moves that then shuffle stuff around.
I'd like to see them address the catching position. Obviously, I think the first domino that has to fall for the Rays is Glasnow, because once Glasnow is traded, I think that Stu Sternberg is pretty comfortable with that payroll. He'd like to get it down a little more. If you can trade a Margot and or a Harold Ramirez, and then, oh, look, now we can, acquire a catcher that's due to make more than $5 million going into next season, and we'll be fine with that. But right now it feels like they're just kind of wait and see mode but if they go in with Rene Pinto and Alex Jackson, I know there's something to like about both those guys. But I have to imagine that would be one of the worst catching tandems in Major League Baseball.
The Guardians did just sign Austin Hedges. So
yeah.
I'm gonna give them a big boost in the awful catching.
And they traded Christian Bethancourt, who was already
they traded questionable. Yeah, so I wouldn't say there's a good chance that they're not even the worst catching situation in the state of Florida.
Bo Naylor is the Guardians' starting catcher, which
decent bat.
Yeah, some numbers like his glove.
Not bad. Yeah, he's not bad. Austin Hedges is quite possibly the worst hitter in the history of baseball, which is impressive.
But he's
a rich
man
defensively. he is just, here's the thing that I think Austin Hedges is the exact perfect person to identify when it comes to like catching and how difficult it is, right? Is Austin Hedges gets a lot of like guff, right? A lot of mockery because his offense, his batting is really bad. It is truly terrible, but he's also very good defensively. He's a really good defensive catcher. And that means that he will consistently get jobs in the major leagues. And teams will go out and sign him to a $5 million deal to make sure that he is a backup catcher on their team. So I do think when you look at like the catching setup, I think that's why you then look at Rene Pinto and you look at his numbers and you look at what he did and you go, okay, actually, that wasn't that bad. That wasn't that bad. When I'm looking around and I'm like, maybe an old Martin Maldonado, does that excite? No, that doesn't really excite you, does it? Okay, what about? And then when you look at Max Stassi, you're like, damn, that guy, that's who we need to add. Okay, maybe that's not that exciting. So I think a catcher would be a very interesting addition. If the Rays were to acquire or sign a veteran shortstop, I think that would be very interesting because I think that might tell us something about internally about what's happening with Wander.
Yeah, no, okay, that would kind of tip their hand a little bit, and I don't know. I mean, you get someone on a 1-year deal, that's great. Then I feel like we're back to the days of the revolving door at shortstop in the years after Jason Bartlett left, where you had we're gonna go. It's gonna kind of this might be a nice segue into our final segment of the evening. But where they had like Yunel Escobar and Asdrubal Cabrera and Brad Miller and Tim Beckham, like all kind and Adani Echeverria. Then you had Willie Adames, and then we thought it was going to be Wander Franco for the next 10 years. Maybe it still will be. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, that would be kind of tip their hand if they go out and signed. I don't know, like is Miguel Rojas still out there? I don't know if that's who you
Probably.
want, but
probably
yeah,
he's usually available
to sign for like $5 million.
I think if you go out and do a 1-year deal, I think a 1-year deal for shortstop is what they would potentially do with whoever, right? Because you still have Basabe, you still have Walls,
or just trade for Willie Adames.
Or you can trade for Willie Adames. Yeah, there you go. Gavin Lux, maybe he's traded back with a Tyler Glasnow trade. He's kind of where's the space for Gavin Lux? We'll see. Is he going to be a starting shortstop for the Dodgers? I think one of the things you would see there, I don't think the Rays, if Wander Franco is donezo, I think you're looking at 2024 as a just make do as best we can. See some Caminero there for a few games, and Walls and Paredes and a revolving door, and then your opening day shortstop in 2025. I think is Carson Williams because at least he can glove it. So you have now Kevin Kiermaier of the infield for real this time. But that's next year's pod. So I'm not too worried about the long-term future because I do think somebody like Carson Williams can be a major league shortstop defensively today. I don't think so, but he made it up to AAA last year. I think he's somebody that could another full year at Durham is somebody that you could see. Even he might even come up this year at some point just to be, the Rays have been able to survive with a kind of black hole in terms of offensive production, as long as the defense production is warranted. So I think that's some nice. It's at least a little bit better than. I don't think we're going into the dark days of floating around.
No, you're very right. But let's go into what I was waiting to see if the news of a Glasnow trade had broken before we decided to do this tonight. But this game was actually Darby's idea. So Darby, I'll actually let you explain what we're going to do here.
Okay, so, and this is going to be something that I really do hope all of you watching go online to Baseball Reference. you can get all the opening day lineups for basically any team you want. But the Rays are nice because it's a very short list. It's only from 1998. And you can see in a nice, very well laid out chart, everybody who was the opening day starter at catcher each year, first base, second base, all the way down the list. So what we're going to do is we are going to draft together. Raise Your Voice is going to make the ultimate Rays opening day roster, opening day lineup, I should say. And the rules are, and this will be the rules for you at home too, when you tweet out at us your lineup, whether it disagrees or agrees with us. We're going to pick one starting pitcher. It has to be a starting pitcher who pitched an opening day. We're going to do the full lineup, including DH, and it has to be a player that started opening day and in that position. So Ben Zobrist, super utility guy, played everywhere. He did not start opening day everywhere. So we can only use him if we wanted to at second base, which is where he has done his opening day starting. So,
well, he's got a couple other positions.
Did he also start? Let's see.
Yeah, he had a shortstop.
We did have a shortstop. Ooh.
He had right field.
Okay, that does open it up a little bit.
So that,
just as long
that
as
was going to be the one we debate, like, because that's strategy, right? Where do we put him? Because that opens up other positions.
So only players that started opening day at that position are eligible for that position. And in terms of, the ultimate lineup, you can pick, their best year or whatever. We're not going necessarily that year of that player. So,
but definitely that time of them with the Rays, like, does it have to?
It has to be with the Rays.
Okay.
So it can be, you can kind of pick your best like Rays year, but it has to be only time spent with the Rays. So best opening day lineup.
So for example, we're probably not going to pick Manny Ramirez to be our DH, right? That would be
probably not.
Okay.
No. Let's
because DH
alert.
gets really interesting. Maybe we can do a wild card for DH.
No.
Okay.
It has to be a starting DH. It has to be. Right. This is what makes it challenging because the Rays have used. So that means Rob Refsnyder is on the board.
Yeah. For
you as a potential opening day ultimate Rays DH. I have an option for that though. So we're going to have a fine DH.
Okay. I mean, there are some crazy options on there.
There are some crazy. That is the most fun options. But yeah, so it can only be with the Rays performance. So Pat Burrell, another one.
Jose Canseco.
Sorry, probably not want him. All right, so let's kick it off with catcher. Brett, who do you want for our catcher, our opening day catcher? Some options here. You have Christian Bethancourt, Mike Zunino, Wilson Ramos, Derek Norris, Hank Conger. Hank Conger was an opening day starter. Rene Rivera, Jose Molina, John Jaso, Deandre Navarro, Toby Hall, and John Flaherty, the first opening day catcher. So who do we got? Who is our opening day catcher? Our ultimate opening day catcher.
On a few positions, I would write multiple names down in order of like where I liked them for that position. And I went back and forth, and I have a feeling I know where you might lean, but I don't know. Maybe I can convince you. I went with the Buffalo, Wilson Ramos, who was an all-star that year. The year that he was traded, he was the opening day starter. I remember this being a pretty significant free agent signing for the Rays. He was going to be injured, so he was going to have the year off, but the Rays were going to bring him back. And he kind of had this career reclamation with the Rays, and it kicked off. He made a good chunk of money after that before retiring a couple of years ago. I really like Wilson Ramos, but I'm willing to hear your argument for Mike Zunino because I'm guessing that's where you're going.
Wait, you think I was going to pick Mike Zunino? I don't know why you would. Where's my Mike Zunino is good shirt? Okay, so here's the thing with Wilson Ramos. He is, after the injury, he is not very good defensively.
No.
He is a little shaky defensively. However, I did look into it because Ramos was that is honestly, I think, the best pick of these. Deandre Navarro is also very close.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of John Jaso, but talk about defensively, yeeks. Amazing batter though. Really, I love the on base percentage. Mike Zunino, if we're getting best year, you're getting like 30 home runs. You're getting a huge year and always one of the best defensive stalwarts behind the plate. But yeah, I mean, I think Wilson Ramos, he is a really good pick. I think he is a really fun pick. His best line with the Rays was the year he actually was opening day. In 2018, he had a 131 WRC plus, had a 358 WOBA. He had 14 home runs with the Rays. It's pretty good. That is pretty good. And he was also pretty solid defensively. He was positive defensively. He wasn't huge defensively, but not terrible defensively. Mike Zunino, though, let me just state, I think this is one of the more contentious ones. I think Jose Molina was also really high on my list just because of that huge defensive value. But I will also concede that, maybe not the best for the ultimate team. Further with the Rays, his one good batting season, a 133 WRC plus, 358 WOBA, 33 home runs, and a 4.5 WAR. So if you're getting the ultimate team and you're getting the ultimate year, 2021, Mike Zunino. He's a better batter.
I'm okay with
Wilson Ramos. He's a better batter.
I am okay with it. I think you're getting a more iconic Ray. Like this guy was, I mean, maybe he wasn't universally loved.
He has a Florida man bobblehead and all-star as well. Same with Wilson Ramos.
Mike
hit
Zunino,
a home run in that all-star game.
Mike Zunino is our starting catcher. Are we going to do batting order to end this?
Sure. Yeah, okay. we can do that. Yeah. You want to write
I think we'll get through these a little. Some of these are going to be more shoe-ins. We won't have a debate. Yes. But maybe this next one we do.
First base is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Who did you have? Mine I was hard to come off of here because because it has two of my favorite all-time Rays.
Carlos Pena is who I landed on.
That's who I did too.
But man, did I think about Fred McGriff for quite some time.
Yeah, this one has actually quite a few really fun options. But the top three here, no offense to G-Man Choi, who also is a very fun option here, but Fred McGriff, Yandy Diaz, and Carlos Pena, like three of Rays legends, really. But to me, I think Carlos Pena, with just for making an ultimate Rays team, this is the only place we can put him. It does leave McGriff out, does leave the Crime Dog out, but in terms of
it leaves Yandy out.
It does
because Yandy's not getting third base. I don't think
it does leave him out. It does give that close, but it's definitely not getting third base. That's a pretty shoe in.
Yeah.
As much as it pains me to leave the Crime Dog and Yandy off, I think I think of my fandom with the Rays, I think Carlos Pena he was like the first real first baseman that I was really fell in love with. Because Fred McGriff, again, great years with the Rays. I think you really could have a great lineup here with him in there. But his best, what I think of him is not as necessarily a Tampa Bay Devil Ray. Even though he had, again, great years with the Devil Rays. Looking at his numbers, he was spectacular everywhere he went. But for me, I think it's Carlos Pena. So this one I'm excited to see from some of you listeners on your list. Does Fred McGriff make it? Is it Yandy? Is it some Logan Morrison stands out there? Maybe. We'll see. He had a really good year.
Ty Wigginton.
2000. Some tie heads. Some tie heads.
Okay.
Wigging out.
Second base. And this is some interesting debate here. Okay, I went with Ben Zobrist.
Yeah. I did too.
But I have some reasoning for that because there's another second baseman that I think we can fit in elsewhere.
Yes.
But Ben Zobrist, like I said, you could use him for right field, shortstop, or second. Right field is probably one of the weaker positions we'll do on here. I just felt like, so I thought about putting Zobrist there to kind of open up the board a little bit. Shortstop, I think, like Zobrist, very good defender, not like an elite shortstop. Very good, but I feel like some better options there as well. In second base, it feels right. Ben Zobrist at second base.
Very tough call with Brandon Lau here. One of the best power hitters in Rays history. Keeps climbing up on the list, just passed the crime dog this past year. But yeah, for me, it's Ben Zobrist. I think second base. Can we talk about position?
So can we talk about, because I want to make sure we don't get to the end, and we're trying to build the ultimate lineup here. I don't want to jump ahead, but I've got Brandon Lau as my designated hitter.
Me too.
Okay.
I saw that in there. And I was like, come on, DH. What do we got? It's like Rob Refsnyder. Ugh. Jose Martinez. Ugh. Oh, God.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to get to the end and leave him out.
No Kelly Johnson, no Pat Burrell, no Manny Ramirez, no Jeff Keppinger. No, Brandon Lau is on this lineup. He needed to be in here. Once I saw him at DH, that allowed me to leave right field alone. And I think defensively, this lineup just got a lot better because I think, Ben Zobrist was the better defensive second baseman. Brandon Lau, we want that bat in the lineup. Bam. So that's our DH. Lot of fun options, I guess. I don't know. There's some bad ones, Brandon Gomes is fun. Cliff Floyd is fun.
That's Johnny Gomes, not Brandon Gomes.
Johnny, did I say Brandon Gomes? I got Dodgers on the brain. I got Dodgers.
He's also a former Ray, though.
He's a former Ray, yeah. Just middle relief, and I think he's already a better GM than he is. As a GM, he signed Shohei Ohtani, and as a reliever, he was like a 4.5 or 5-year ERA. So I think he's already excelling in his post.
I mean,
Greg Vaughn, Jose Canseco,
Aubrey Huff.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting options in DH. A lot of interesting off the field options too. Jose Canseco and
I mean, Jeff Keppinger had a really good year, doesn't he? He's like second in
great the batting average.
Yeah, 325 batting average, 367 on base in his 1 year with the Rays.
John Jaso is in there. That's not a bad. Corey Dickerson was an all-star for 1 year.
Sweet swinging Matty Joyce.
But Brandon Lau is the clear choice there.
Yeah. And take him off his back.
Josh Lowe is also Josh Lowe was the opening day DH this year. That was an option for me. I was thinking about that, but I think getting both Zobrist and Brandon Lau is a coup for our team. So
I agree. Okay. Third base.
Shortstop.
Shortstop first. Sorry.
No. Third base. Let's go through the right order of around the horn. So 5. We're up to 5. Third base.
Easiest one up there. Yeah.
Easiest one up there. Defensively, offensively, face of the franchise, obvious.
All right,
now shortstop.
Yeah.
Much harder. Wish it wasn't. Really wish it wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
Would have been real easy last year.
Oh yeah. It was hard, but it really came down to 2 for me. And because of one really awesome season he had, I went with Jason Bartlett.
Yeah.
I felt like Willy Adames, while good, felt like some of that potential that we were expecting out of him never really just went into that next gear. He was very good shortstop with the Rays, but I always felt like there was something, and he unlocked it a little bit with the Brewers. I still think there's some left in there, and he's obviously putting together an incredible big league career. But I really wanted to go Willy Adames, but I had to just settle on Jason Bartlett.
Yeah, I think I went Bartlett as well. I went Jason Bartlett as well. And I think again, I'm a 30-something Rays fan, so that 2008 team is like indelible to me.
Yeah.
So that definitely becomes a lot of those players are even bigger than their playing career. But Bartlett had a very good Rays career. Very, very good. Defensively, offensively. I think he's a really good shot. I think Seth Lugo, or not Seth Lugo. I got a lot of the modern Julio Lugo. I have like middle relievers on the brain for all of these guys. Julio Lugo was in that running. Also some very bad off the field stuff. So it's a real. We have a whole other lineup for
him and Aubrey Huff. Him and Aubrey Huff shared the left side of the infield that opening day in 2006.
It's what a oof. But yeah,
with Carl Crawford, who's had some off the field troubles. Rocco Baldelli was there,
which we now bring into left field.
Yeah,
we got Bartlett as our shortstop. Left field is a very interesting
for me.
Very interesting one
for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for me. Okay. I mean, he is.
Oh, actually, now that I'm looking, we got lucky here. Actually,
for me, left field. I mean, he was one of the first players inducted into the Rays Hall of Fame. It had to be Carl Crawford. I know, and maybe there's still an opportunity for Randy Arozarena to get in this team. We'll talk about that. I don't know. Might get contentious. I'm not sure. But this had to be Carl Crawford. There was no other answer.
It's tricky because originally I did not even notice. I thought Randy only started at left field, and Crawford only started in left field. So I was like, oh, this is one of the tightest. This is, I think, the most interesting former legend versus modern legend battles. It's Carl Crawford for me as well. Again, I'm glad you also mentioned that because I do think for me it's again 2008, but also I think in terms of playing defensively, I think there's an edge there. Offensively, some of Crawford's best seasons are as good as Randy's regular seasons and adds a really interesting speed dynamic. So I think for me, Crawford does get the edge in terms of ultimate Rays lineup, but Randy is not eliminated.
No.
Thanks to some craziness from Kevin Cash, he's not eliminated yet.
We'll get to that. Center field.
Yeah. Very fun stuff.
And again, having grown up with those teams, like there was one player who was always, and I think I was his most ardent defender growing up because was not the most popular Rays player ever. But I loved me some BJ Upton, some Boss Man Jr. And for me, and I'm a big Kevin Kiermaier defender too, you know that. But I could not pass up putting BJ Upton in center field.
This is why we're good podcast hosts and podcast partners because I love Boss Man Jr.
Yeah,
he is. I've long said him and James Shields are my two favorite Rays of all time. Favorite position player, favorite pitcher. Over Longoria even. I just love the way he played. I love the way he glided. I loved his power, the speed. And I think also it probably comes out in my Mike Zunino defense. The more the Rays fans hate on a player unfairly, the more I dig in on the top of my hill and die up there ready to be just buried on top of that hill. That just made me even more of a fan of him. I just love BJ Upton. So center field, Kiermaier, very good. If people put him as their center fielder, I can't say that that's incorrect. If people want to put Rocco Baldelli, I mean, I think that you could. I think BJ Upton, especially since we get our like best seasons, some of the best, like absolutely, he is incredible. And also, just again, we're not even punting the defense when it comes to Kevin Kiermaier because Upton was as good defensively as Kiermaier. It's just he didn't look at that hard. I think that was his almost biggest failing grace was he was so fast and his reads were so good. He would get to the ball so fast that you'd almost look like he was barely trying. Really, really good time with the Rays. Like really interesting career, and somebody who converts to the outfield and really becomes a excellent outfielder. Upton's our choice, center field.
I could have made the case for Kevin Kiermaier, and you kind of did a little bit, and maybe we agree too much, but I mean, yeah, for me, it was that one required not that much thought or consideration. It was always BJ, and then that leaves us right field. Oh, we still have to do starting pitcher, but we'll go to right field next.
Right field.
Again, some interesting names. Davey Martinez back from the nadir of the franchise. And you also had Delman Young was out there. Ben Zobrist was an option for right field.
Grieve?
Yeah, Super Sam Fold. Austin Meadows. Manuel Margot.
A very fun season from Carlos Gomez.
Yeah, that was a fun season. But there was one player that you probably think of as a left fielder that made one opening day start in right field in 2021. We mentioned him earlier. Darby, do you have him on your lineup?
It's the opportunity to put Randy Arozarena onto this team. I have to put him onto this team. It's not his best, but we have Crawford and we have Upton, so you can shade them over, and now you have more of right field. And Randy's not terrible in the outfield, and he's played some in right field. You can shift Randy Land to right field as well. You can just move it over, and yeah, I think it's very interesting. I don't know what Cash was doing here, because you have Meadows starting in right field, and then he moves him over to left for Arozarena. Kiermaier, Meadows, and Arozarena. Boy, Kevin was having to cover a lot of territory out there. Oh boy, that's some hard work up there. That almost made him make the team alone just to have to cover that outfield. But next year he got Margot, so that's a nice partner. It's Randy. It's got to be Randy. Can't leave him off the team.
Okay, and then let's do starting pitcher, then batting order, and then we'll talk about a couple snubs.
Okay.
Starting pitcher, again, a lot of great options. I think this might be where we disagree. And again, I might cede with you, but I had to go with David Price, the greatest pitcher in franchise history, probably the closest Rays pitcher to having a Hall of Fame career. And maybe one day he'll be a Rays Hall of Famer. And was just incredible. You look at his Cy Young Award winning season in 2012 when he had the 2.56 ERA, was consistently throwing over 200 innings, through 248 the year he was traded away from the Rays, faced over 1,000 batters that season, just unheard of in today's game. I think he's the best pitcher in Rays history, and one of the best pitchers in the last 20 years in the American League. So I want David Price, but I have a feeling I know where you're going, but I'll just turn it over to you.
Okay, so here's the funny thing. I just mentioned that James Shields is my favorite Rays pitcher. I'm going to make the case for Big Game James. However, I also wrote down David Price. Because if we're talking about ultimate, I agree with everything you just said. I think you made the point. David Price is the most talented pitcher the Rays have ever had. He is also the best performing pitcher the Rays have ever had. And as a Ray, he is, I just think is the best. And his best years actually end up the trade year and then the year after. Both years he gets traded, which is very funny. But he had such consistently good seasons. But this is a high mark, right? Because you have Blake Snell, who won a Cy Young. You have Tyler Glass now, who has maybe the best stuff of anybody the Rays have ever had. You have Shane McClanahan, who might rival Tyler Glass now for the best stuff anybody the Rays have ever had. just David Price feels like a pitcher that doesn't exist anymore in the modern game too. Somebody with great stuff and 200 innings in him. Like, I think that's just a very unique and a very, very cool, worthy of this list. But
Agreed.
my case for James Shields, for the people out there that might be making their own list, because we're going with David Price. My case for James Shields, though, is his just incredible consistency year in and year out, in terms of he gets overshadowed on his own team so many by like flashier pitchers, but this was the guy that just, he became named Big Game James for a reason. He absolutely, again, hit 200 innings pitched, not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times, not 6 times, but 9 times in a row.
9 times.
9 times in a row. He had the incredible 2011 season where he pitched 249 innings pitched and 11 complete games. He wasn't just big game. He was complete game James. That is an insane, that is something that will never happen again in Rays history.
Yeah.
That's something that I don't think will happen again.
It won't happen in baseball history.
11 complete games is like, that's like a stat line now. That's as wild to the modern baseball stats and 250 innings pitched as it is to like us now, like hearing about like I don't know, just like these crazy, like Walter Johnson being like 30 complete games and 40 like wins, and like these absurd, like they pitched every 2 days, and it's crazy. Like 11 complete games.
Darby, you're going to be really old, and in your rocking chair, you're going to be screaming at whoever will listen. Back in my day, pitchers like James Shields used to throw 11 complete games in a season, 250 innings. Like,
no, that'll be
time to put in.
That'll be the new like meme.
Yeah.
It's something that hasn't been done since 2011. James Shields 11 complete games as the Angels lose 8-3. But honestly, all that being said, you still have like that same. So James Shields, that 11 complete game season is incredible. 5 wins above replacement, just an amazing season. That same year, though, you have David Price, who same exact wins above replacement, 224 innings pitched. Even in James Shields' best year with the Rays and his most impressive major league season, I still think David Price kind of goes pound for pound with him. And I think it's got to be David Price. As much, and he's also as much a Rays into, I think he is somebody that'll be in the Rays Hall of Fame, I think, because he is the guy that pitched them to their first World Series. He was the man on the mound, getting the last out with an amazing save in his rookie year, like coming in that big spot. Like, what an incredible moment. That was just incredible. So I'm excited to see what people post, because I mean, you have Charlie Morton, you have Tyler Glasnow, you have Shane McClanahan, Scott Kazmir, Wilson Alvarez. Like, I think there's some really cool options for this opening day starter. I'm curious to see what people go with.
Yeah,
who agrees, who disagrees.
Let's really quickly do a batting order, and then maybe talk about a couple snubs. So I only differed with you actually from one player, which was catcher, but we agreed to go with Zunino. And everything else, we were pretty much in unison. Easy leadoff hitter is Carl Crawford in left field, right?
He never liked leadoff, though. He hated leadoff. He wanted to be number 2.
Who are you leading off? Brandon Lau?
I'm going Zobrist.
Okay,
gets on base.
It's true. He does
gets on base.
So
and then Crawford gets his number 2. He he was very. That's the thing. I want to appease. I want Carl Crawford to feel as comfortable as possible.
No,
he's
that's
in left
true.
field. He's out in center field. He's at second. He's not batting leadoff.
That is true. Batting third, playing third base, number 3, Evan Longoria, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And maybe there's an argument for a couple of our other players, but Carlos Pena was my cleanup hitter.
I think so. We got switch left, right.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a nice time to go back to left with Pena.
Maybe you think about Lau for a second.
I think about Lau for a second, but I think Pena, I'm just going to give him the nod.
Yeah.
Because I think also the lower stress position, lower for Lau can kind of lead the like lineup from the lower half.
Kind of like that. I did mix another righty in here next, or do you want to go Brandon Lau fifth?
This is where I had put Randy.
That's exactly where I had Randy.
Yeah, yep. I want that righty. Also a little more speed after Pena.
And then Brandon Lau. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're still in lockstep.
Yeah, Lau 6.
Now, this is where I initially had Wilson Ramos, but do we want to do you want to put Zunino 7th or Upton or Bartlett 7th?
I think at this point I want Upton.
Yep. Okay.
I want Upton. Then I want Zunino. Bartlett 9th.
Yep.
Because again, it's that speed.
Mm-hmm.
I debate putting Upton 9th, but I think that's just too low. I want him to get maybe one extra at bat.
Yeah, I mean, I think Upton and Jose Siri, like Upton's better, but like very similar profiles. Where like you'll see the Rays bump Siri up, and Upton's got that similar power to Jose Siri, where you want
effortless
that ability to drive in the meat of the order guys who get on base a lot.
Right.
And then, like you said, Bartlett had a pretty, was a decent hitter, had one really solid year, but probably, you're hoping we get career years Zunino, and then you've got Bartlett 9th.
Right.
Man, I love that lineup. Yeah,
whatever you get from those two at the bottom, it's money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zunino runs into 230 bombs and 200 strikeouts, but that's okay. Because he's there for the defense. He's there to catch 250 innings of David Price.
That's right. Biggest snubs, Wade Boggs would probably be one, but only started at third base, and so really had no chance.
I think McGriff, Kiermaier are
the two Hall of Famers, Boggs and McGriff, and then Kiermaier. Another potential Rays Hall of Famer. I don't know. He'll be on the fringe, I think.
The Rays Hall of Fame for sure. I think he will. I think will absolutely come back. Yeah.
Obviously, a bunch of pitchers, but Archer, Snell, Morton, Shields, Kazmir, Glasnow.
The pitching snub list is through the roof. Yandy Diaz, I also want to put on as a snub, because I think he is going to be. His impact has been incredible. Like he is already an all-time Ray in terms of just he had won a batting title and a Silver Slugger. That not many Rays can say that they've done that. So Yandy Diaz is in the all second team opening day roster.
Toby Hall, a catcher for a while, was held his own, right? You could have, I guess, in some world made an argument for him, just for his baseball contributions to the franchise. Like Aubrey Huff, had a really solid Rays career. Man, you couldn't pay me to put him on this fictional lineup, though.
If Aubrey Huff became a patron.
Oh yeah.
We put him on okay. That's how easy we can be bought off. $5 a month, and Aubrey Huff is our starting DH.
But I mean, some interesting names you'd realize if you haven't looked at this. Is also, by the way, and I feel like a lot of our listeners probably do know this, there is a Sporkle quiz where you get to guess the names on the Rays opening day lineups. I typically do it once or twice in off season, maybe like once at the beginning of the off season. Then I refresh my memory again, like maybe when spring training is in. And I always do a little bit worse than I think I'll do. I'll always forget that like Joey Gathright was an opening day starter in center field for the Rays, or that Tim Beckham was the opening day shortstop one year. Rob Refsnyder. That's typically one I do remember for some weird reason, just because of how odd it was.
If this offseason continues to be very slow, we might have to do the most random or worse, maybe with
Jose Martinez as the designated hitter.
The opening day lineup of like, wait, that was a Ray?
Like, Jose Martinez's Ray tenure has to be one of the weirdest of all time.
It all made sense, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
You do. I feel like catcher Derek Norris and Hayden Conger are perfect for that. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That guy?
Okay. Well, we've been going live for almost an hour and a half. We don't yet know if Tyler Glasnow has been traded anywhere. It sounds like nothing has happened yet. But I imagine by the next time, we'll see. And then, of course, 10 minutes after we log off, it's going to happen. But I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Once again, just letting you guys know that this podcast is now also on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/@RageYourVoice. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at RYVPod or RYV Podcast. You can follow Darby at Darby_Robinson. You can follow myself at BG Rutherford99. Make sure to follow at DRaysBay as well. And if you so choose and you want to help support the podcast, just head on over to patreon.com/RaiseYourVoice. Once again, nothing's going behind a paywall. It's just if you want to say thank you, tiers starting at $1 a month, you can head on over to Patreon if you want to say thank you. And as always, make sure to head on over to DRaysBay.com to check out all of the great Rays coverage. We'll talk to you guys next week.